Everybody, you know what time it is? It's the first day of 2021. You know what channel this is? Andrew's Life. You know, there's been a bunch of people, I'm pretty sure by now, that have made some sort of New Year's resolution video or what have you. Uh, this video, if you want to call it a New Year's resolution video, alright. But this ain't really a New Year's resolution video. I prefer to call this video a New Year's reminder video. For this year of 2021, basically the main goal, which I believe everybody ought to have for 2021, and not just at the beginning of the year, but also just every day throughout your life. I mean, every day when you wake up, you should always strive to be a better person the next day than you were the day before. Every year, every month, every birthday, whatever the case may be, you should always strive to be a better person on that day than you were before. Like for the new year, you should strive to be a better person for 2021 than you were for 2020. Now, for those of you that had a pretty smooth year I can't even talk right, man. For those of you that had a smooth 2020, congratulations, I'm happy for you. But many of us have had either a rough year for 2020 or we've had rough patches for 2020. So if you're in the group of people that had a rough 2020 or you had rough patches of 2020, the best thing that you can do to make 2021 a better year than 2020 is reflect on everything that went wrong in 2020 and maybe reflect on some of the things in 2020 that went good. Now, it's a lot easier for all of us to sit around and point fingers at whomever for all the wrong that may have happened in 2020. I mean, we all can sit around and point fingers at politicians. We can point fingers at political parties. We can point fingers at landlords. We can point fingers at entrepreneurs, like major business owners and such. I mean, no, we all can point fingers at whomever, man. We all got somebody that we might prefer to point a finger at. And at the end of the day, that's easy to do. What's much harder to do, but it's necessary to do, is to take what's called self-responsibility and also take initiative for your own life. I mean, whatever it is in your life that you want to do, whatever goals you might have, however it is you want to live your life, however it is that you feel that you need to do to have a better 2021, I mean, number one, you need to take initiative. I mean, don't sit around and procrastinate and waste time. Whatever it is you want to do, just get out here, do your thing. And anything that goes wrong, regardless to rather or rather not somebody other than yourself is at fault, the best thing that you can do is look in the mirror and think of all the things that you may have done wrong. Think of all the things that you could have done differently to improve the outcome of whatever. Like, for those of us that had a rough 2020 or we had rough patches of 2020, the best thing that any one of us can do is reflect on those situations, reflect on what happened, look in the mirror and think of how we could have better approached that particular situation to prevent whatever bad that may have happened in 2020. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. I mean, for me, 2020 wasn't a bad year. I mean, for the most part, it was a pretty good year. Now, for me, the 2020 was a pretty smooth selling year up until, I'm gonna say, maybe November. Because shortly after I got, I'll say a month or so after I got to Alabama, my job prospects began to fall through because things weren't working out the way I anticipated things to work out. I mean, I had a job working at the Hyundai plant, but they were working, 7 days a week, 10 plus hours a day. And given that I got arthritis bad in both my feet, I was unable to be on my feet for that long. And plus, I wasn't getting adequate sleep. It was to the point where sometimes I would catch myself falling asleep behind the wheel. So for my health, I quit that job. And the jobs that I got after that were so low paying that I was barely able to pay all my bills and at the same time continue to invest money into my retirement fund and also into my savings. So as a result, the money that I did have saved up, I was having to spend some of that to pay out some of my bills here in Indiana while I was down in Montgomery, Alabama. So making a long story short, I worked my last job and I was there for maybe, I don't know, a month and a half, no, a little over a month, I forgot. It's a little over a month I was at this particular job. I mean, I was working at a traveling plaza as a maintenance person, and I was only getting like 30 hours a week, which was not enough hours for me to work with in terms of my finances. So in my feet, even at that job, my feet began to hurt. Now, honestly, if I would have got a full 40-hour work week over there, I would have toughened out the pain. But given that they were only working me 30 hours and I was unable to get any extra hours, I quit because I wasn't going to stick around and work those few hours and go through all that pain. So like I told you in my video why I left Alabama, I mean, I just couldn't justify staying in Alabama due to the little bit of money that the jobs that I was working out, due to the little bit of money I was making with the jobs that I was working when I was down there. So while I was down in Alabama, my thought was, okay, I'm in Alabama and I've been wanting to visit Key West, Florida forever. So as an adult, I've never been down to Key West. So I decided to take a trip down to Key West, which from Montgomery, for me, it was a 2-day drive. So, I went down to Key West and I was down in Key West for a few days. And then of course it was a 2-day drive back to Montgomery, Alabama. So I went down to Key West, and I do got videos up on this channel about my trip to the Keys. So go back and check those videos out. And after a few days, I took that 2-day trip back up north to Montgomery, Alabama. Now, when I was on my way back home from Florida, this was like my first day that I was on my way back home. On that day, I didn't feel too well. I mean, I felt a little under the weather. But I didn't really think much of it. I'm thinking, okay, well, I've been doing a whole lot of jobbing, so maybe my body is just letting me know that I need to, chill and take it easy. So basically, I stopped off at one of the rest stops and I slept for several hours. I think I slept for 12 hours to be specific. I went to bed around 6 o'clock in the evening, and I got up around 6 in the morning and, took a piss and hit the road, and I kept on driving. So when I woke up the next morning, I felt better. I mean, I still wasn't 100, but I felt a lot better than I did the night before. And then I stopped off at a gas station, grabbed me a cup of coffee, and I've already had some food in my van, so I had some coffee and a cereal bar, and I felt better. I felt normal. So it was smooth sailing from that point. However, when I got back to Montgomery, once again, I began to feel a little under the weather. So rather than sleeping in my van that evening, I decided to check into a hotel. And I do have a video of me staying in that hotel in Montgomery, Alabama, so go check out that video as well. It's on this channel. But anyways, I stayed in this hotel for the night. I woke up the next morning and, Once again, I was a little under the weather, but I woke up, did my normal routine, woke up, used the restroom, ate breakfast, took a shower. After I did all that, I felt a little better, but once again, I was not 100%. So I left the hotel and I did a couple of things in town last minute before I jumped on 65 to head back home to Indiana. Well, during the time I was driving, that whole entire time, I was not feeling 100%. But I was feeling real enough to be able to drive back home to Indiana. Well, I get back to Indiana, I get back to my hometown, and I really start to feel a little under the weather. So I stop off at a Dollar General on my way home, and I buy like a ton of soup and a ton of Gatorade because I'm anticipating that most likely I'm coming down with something. So I'm gonna probably be sick at least the following day. Well, I get back to my house and I bring in a couple of bags with some critical items. I sit down in my computer chair for a little bit and then I proceed to fall asleep. And then after a little bit, I wake up and all of a sudden I got the chills and my head is hurting like real bad. So at this point, I went outside, made sure that my van was locked up, and I locked up my house and cut on my house alarm for the night. And then I went straight to bed. So shortly after I got to bed, I woke up, I started I had to use the bathroom a whole lot. And I started coughing a whole lot. Woke up the next day and I felt even worse. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? I ain't never been this sick, this bad, ever. So, but anyhow, I'm just trying to toughen it out. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just drink a whole lot of Gatorade. I'm gonna eat soup, and I'm gonna get plenty of sleep, and whatever I got going on, hopefully it works itself out of my body. Well, the following day, the following day, same thing. I was feeling no better. In fact, it was a little worse. So the day after that, same thing, feeling no better. So finally I got a little nervous and I decided to check into the ER at my local hospital. And I decided to get tested for COVID. They came back several hours later. They tested me for COVID, they did blood work. They came back several hours later and they informed me that I had COVID. And they informed me that with COVID, there's no kind of antibiotic that they would have been able to give me to make anything better. So they told me basically I'm gonna have to go back home and let the virus work its way out of my system. And for several days I would basically feel like shit. So I went home and I just stayed in bed pretty much. The only time I got out of bed was to use the bathroom, to feed my cat, and to check my mailbox. And to eat whenever I was able to eat, because most of the time during the time I had COVID, I was unable to eat because I had no appetite whatsoever, and my sense of taste was completely gone. And also I felt like throwing up. So anyways, I felt terrible for the last several days. So my point being is, I was sick. I was sick due to COVID for the better part of 2 weeks. Now my initial plan was, when I got back to Indiana, I was going to take off maybe a couple of days and then get out, find me a job and go back to work and get my money right. But when I got home, I couldn't do that because I contracted COVID. So at first I was thinking, okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. At first I was feeling bad for myself because I got COVID, so now it's gonna mess my money up even worse. But then I got to thinking, okay, well, what could I have done differently to where I wouldn't be caught up in this particular situation? So I got to thinking, and I was like, Like, I was thinking, number one, rather than being in Alabama for 2 months, I should have probably left Alabama sometime in November, as opposed to waiting all the way until December. Because if I would have left in November, if I would have decided to leave in November and done all my Florida stuff and everything, and then got back to Indiana in November, I could have, number one, there's a chance I may have not contracted COVID. And number two, even if I did contract COVID at that point, still, the holidays, I would have had to deal with Thanksgiving in terms of things being a little slower. But then after Thanksgiving, I wouldn't have to deal with any kind of holiday inconveniences until Christmas. So I'm thinking, okay, if I would have left Alabama in, let's say, mid-November, shortly after I quit the Hyundai plant, and I was working this other job that was paying crappy money. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I would have left in November, I could have got home, got me a job relatively quick, because the holidays, although they were close by, it wouldn't have been to where it would have slowed me down, because I could have just got home and got me a job and been working. And I figure at the very worst, even if I would have got home and contracted COVID in November, by the 1st of December, I would have been back to my normal self. So at that point, I could have got out and hurried up, got me a job of some sort, because at that point, Christmas was 24 days away. So I could have got me a job, been working, been making my money, been stacking up my paper, and been good. And by Christmas, my money would have been set, because I wouldn't be running around here with my head cut off looking for work, and here it is almost Christmas. Because really, I got a job at this point, and it's waiting for me. I haven't been to work yet, but I didn't get this particular job until a couple of days ago. And I would say it was like a couple of days or so before Christmas before I even got a phone call from my supervisor to give her the information that she needed so she can go on ahead and run the paperwork through to approve, so she can go ahead and run all the necessary paperwork. That way I can begin working. So I'm thinking, okay, if I would have left Alabama a little earlier, I could have got all this out the way, and I would have been good. I would have had more money. So I tell you people all this because this is just my example of how I decided to take self-responsibility, and how I decided to do some self-reflecting of things that I did wrong, that I could have done better to improve the outcome of the situation. So, for 2021, if you had a rough 2020 at any time, like I said, reflect on all the rough times you've went through. Look in the mirror. Take self-responsibility for all the mistakes you made, regardless of whether you could have blamed somebody else or not. Take your part of the responsibility. That way, this year, 2021, you can have a much better year. Well, I know this video is getting a little long, and I apologize, but I just wanted to get the point across, and hopefully I got the point across. So until next time, have a good one, have a blessed one, and I will see you on the next video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.